I grew up in a quaint house, its walls echoing with the laughter and occasional squabbles of a loving family. My parents, John and Mary, were the epitome of care and affection, always fostering my curiosity and sense of adventure. It was in this nurturing environment, in the cozy rooms filled with mementos and family portraits, that my fascination with the outdoors was born. My childhood was a tapestry of camping trips. Each expedition into the woods was an adventure, a departure from the comfort of my bedroom, with its walls adorned with posters of forests and mountains. The crisp air, the uncharted paths, and the freedom they offered were intoxicating. I remember the thrill of setting up our old, green tent, its fabric whispering tales of past adventures. The campfire was a place of magic, where stories came alive, and the stars above seemed close enough to touch. The woods were a wonderland, a realm where every tree and creek whispered secrets of the wild. My favorite part was the early morning walks with my father. We would tread softly, our boots crunching over the underbrush, as he taught me to read the language of nature. Deer tracks, the call of a distant bird, the rustle of leaves, every detail was a story waiting to be discovered. As I grew older, the trips became less frequent, life's responsibilities casting a shadow over the simple joys of camping. But the call of the woods never faded. It remained there, a gentle, persistent tug at my heart. Fast forward to 2017. I was 28, my life a whirlwind of work and fleeting weekends. It was during one of those rare moments of quiet that the decision was made. I needed to go back, to reconnect with the part of me left wandering in those woods. So, I planned a trip, a solo journey into the familiar embrace of nature. I packed my car with the essentials, a tent, a sleeping bag, and an unshakable sense of anticipation. Driving away from the city, the buildings gave way to open fields and then to dense forests. I felt the weight of urban life lifting with each mile. The destination was a secluded spot, a place where childhood memories were as thick as the foliage. As I set up camp, the familiarity of the process brought a smile to my face. The tent, a newer model now, still held the same promise of adventure. That evening, as the sun dipped below the tree line, casting long shadows across my campsite, fate intervened. A group of young campers, vibrant and full of life, stumbled upon my solitude. There was Alex, the natural leader with a ready smile, Sarah, whose laughter was as bright as the fire we sat around, Mike, the quiet one with eyes full of stories, and Emily, adventurous and bold. Together, we shared a meal under the stars, the fire crackling in harmony with our voices. Guitars were brought out, and the forest hummed with the sound of music and youthful exuberance. It was during this picture-perfect moment that I chose to share a horror story, a tradition from my childhood camping days. As the flames danced and the night deepened, my tale of an unseen presence in these very woods seemed to captivate my audience. Little did I know, the story I spun from imagination would soon become a terrifying reality. For as night fell and the laughter faded, strange events began to unfold, events that would lead us down a path of unimaginable horror. The first sign was subtle, almost dismissible, a chill in the air, a sense of being watched. But by morning, the true nature of our situation would reveal itself, plunging us into a nightmare that defied explanation. The invisible tracker was more than just a campfire story. It was a sinister truth waiting to be uncovered. The morning after our impromptu gathering, I awoke to a world draped in mist. The sun struggled to pierce the dense canopy, casting a surreal glow over the campsite. As I stretched, my eyes fell upon a sight that turned the remnants of last night's warmth into a cold knot in my stomach. Surrounding our camp were footprints, enormous and oddly shaped, unlike anything I had seen before. They formed a near-perfect circle around us, as if something colossal had been watching us in the night. The others saw them too, their faces etched with confusion and a dawning fear. Alex tried to brush it off as a prank, but the seriousness of the situation was undeniable. These weren't human footprints. They were too large, too alien. Sarah, ever the rational one, suggested they could be from an unknown animal, but her voice wavered, betraying her skepticism. As we pondered over this mystery, I couldn't shake off the eerie feeling that my horror story from the previous night was coming to life. It was Mike who first suggested we follow the tracks. Despite the apprehension, there was an unspoken agreement that we needed answers. We set out, the air thick with unvoiced fears, following the trail into the heart of the woods. The forest seemed different in the daylight, more menacing, as if it held secrets it wasn't willing to share. The tracks led us deeper, away from the familiar paths, into a part of the woods that felt untouched, ancient. After what felt like hours, we stumbled upon a clearing. In the center stood an old, dilapidated cabin, its windows like dark, unblinking eyes. It was here that the tracks ended, swallowed by the silent structure. Curiosity overcame our fear. We approached cautiously, the cabin seeming to loom larger with each step. The door hung ajar, inviting yet foreboding. Inside, the air was stale, heavy with the scent of decay and old secrets. The cabin was a time capsule, frozen in a long-forgotten era. Dust-laden furniture, faded photographs on the walls, and personal belongings scattered as if the owners had left in a hurry. But it was the diary we found on a rickety table that held the answers we sought. The diary belonged to a man named Thomas, a logger who worked these woods in the early 1900s. His entries were mundane at first, but as we flipped through the pages, a chilling story unfolded. Thomas and his crew had encountered something in these woods, something inexplicable and terrifying. The entries grew more frantic, detailing disappearances, strange sightings, and an overwhelming sense of being watched by an unseen entity. The final entry, dated August 4th, 1905, was the most disturbing. Thomas wrote of a decision to abandon the camp, to flee the oppressive terror that had enveloped them. He described a harrowing night when the whispers grew louder, accompanied by a chilling howl that seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere. The diary ended abruptly, the last page torn, the ink smudged, as if Thomas had been writing in a state of panic. The fate of Thomas and his crew remains a mystery to this day. The diary was found years later, hidden under the floorboards of an abandoned cabin in the heart of Eldridge Forest. To this day, the haunting of Eldridge Forest remains one of the most chilling unsolved mysteries of the Pacific Northwest. The diary of Thomas Halloway serves as a silent witness to the terror that befell a crew of loggers over a century ago, a terror that continues to whisper through the leaves of Eldridge Forest. The final entry was the most disturbing. It was a hastily scrawled warning, urging anyone who found the diary to leave, to escape the malevolent presence that haunted these woods. The words were etched with a fear so palpable it leapt off the page. As we stood there, absorbing the horror of Thomas's story, night began to fall, casting long shadows across the cabin. The atmosphere grew heavy, charged with a sense of impending doom. We decided to leave, to pack up and find a new campsite. But as we emerged from the cabin, a chilling realization dawned upon us. The forest had changed. The once familiar paths were gone, swallowed by an impenetrable wall of trees and underbrush. We were lost, trapped in a nightmare that was all too real. As we huddled together, the eerie silence of the woods was broken by a sound that chilled us to the bone, a low, guttural growl, coming from all around us. The horror of the situation was clear. We were not alone. Something was out there, watching, waiting. The invisible tracker was more than just a legend. It was a terrifying reality that we were now a part of. Panic set in as the growling echoed through the dense forest, a sinister symphony that seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere. Our group, once lively and spirited, now clung to each other, eyes wide with terror. The realization that we were being hunted by something unseen was a weight too heavy to bear. In the failing light, we attempted to retrace our steps, but the woods had transformed into an unrecognizable labyrinth. Trees, once familiar landmarks, now stood as menacing sentinels, barring our way. The paths, which I had walked countless times in my youth, had vanished as if swallowed by the earth. Alex took charge, his voice barely masking his fear. "We need to move," Now, it's tracking us. His words spurred us into action, despite the paralyzing fear that gripped our hearts. We moved hastily, our footsteps muffled by the thick carpet of leaves. Every rustle, every snap of a twig sent shivers down our spines. Sarah clutched a map, her hands trembling as she tried to find a route out. But the map was useless in this altered terrain. Emily, who had always been the brave one, whispered what we were all thinking. It's like the woods are alive, changing around us. As night enveloped the forest, our situation grew dire. The growls grew closer, more menacing. We knew we couldn't outrun whatever was stalking us. In desperation, we decided to find a place to hide, to wait out the night. We found an old, hollowed-out tree, large enough to conceal us. It was a temporary sanctuary, a respite from the unrelenting terror. We huddled together, hardly daring to breathe. The hours stretched endlessly, each minute an eternity. The growls continued, circling our hideout, a constant reminder of the predator lurking in the shadows. Mike, his face pale in the moonlight, murmured, "What does it want?" No one answered. The truth was too horrifying to voice. As dawn approached, the growling ceased. We emerged from our hiding place, weary and on edge. The forest, bathed in the soft light of morning, seemed less threatening, but the illusion of safety was short-lived. We stumbled upon a clearing, and there, in the center, lay evidence of the horror we faced. Animal carcasses, torn and mangled, were strewn across the ground. It was a macabre scene, a display of savage power. It was Sarah who noticed the pattern. "It's hurting us," she said, her voice barely above a whisper, leading us where it wants. The realization struck us hard. We were not just lost, we were being manipulated, driven like prey. The invisible tracker was not just a creature, it was an intelligent, malevolent force. Our resolve hardened. We had to escape, to break free from this nightmare. We decided to head east, toward the faintest hint of a trail Sarah remembered from the map. The journey was treacherous. The woods seemed to resist our every step, branches entangling our feet, the ground uneven and treacherous. We were exhausted, hungry, and scared, but the fear of what hunted us propelled us forward. As we navigated the hostile terrain, the sound of a distant river reached our ears. It was a sliver of hope, a possible path to salvation. With renewed energy, we pushed toward the sound. But our hunter was not done with us yet. As we neared the river, a bone-chilling howl pierced the air, freezing us in our tracks. It was close, closer than it had ever been. We ran, fueled by adrenaline, the river our only chance of escape. Behind us, the howls grew louder, a cacophony of terror that drove us to the brink of despair. As the river came into view, a glimmer of hope ignited within us. But it was then that we encountered the most horrifying revelation of all. The river was swollen, a raging torrent that barred our way. Trapped between the deadly waters and the unseen predator, we faced an impossible choice. It was in this moment of despair that the true nature of our situation became clear. We were part of a game, a twisted hunt orchestrated by a creature beyond our understanding. The invisible tracker had led us here, to this moment of utter hopelessness. But it was here, in the face of certain doom, that we found our resolve. We would not be victims, we would fight, survive, and reclaim our freedom from the clutches of the nightmare that hunted us. There we were, standing at the edge of the tumultuous river, our backs to the unseen terror that had been relentlessly pursuing us. The growls and howls had ceased, as if our hunter was savoring this moment of anticipated triumph. But in that dire moment, something within us shifted. Fear was supplanted by a fierce determination to survive, to not succumb to this nightmare. Alex, his eyes reflecting a newfound resolve, turned to us. "We can't cross the river, it's too dangerous. But we can't go back either. Our only chance is to confront it, to stand our ground." The idea was daunting. We had no weapons, no means to fight whatever lurked in the shadows. Yet, the alternative was to be hunted down like prey. We chose to fight. We quickly devised a plan. Using whatever we could find, sticks, rocks, the the remnants of our camping gear, we prepared to defend ourselves. Emily, with her unyielding spirit, took the lead in setting traps around our makeshift stronghold. Sarah and Mike gathered the largest rocks they could carry. I helped Alex fashion spears from broken branches. As the sun began its descent, casting a golden hue over the forest, our battleground was set. We positioned ourselves back to back, forming a circle, each facing the ominous woods. Our breaths were shallow, our hearts pounding in unison against the impending doom. Then, as the shadows grew longer, it emerged. The creature was unlike anything we could have imagined. Towering, shrouded in darkness, its form seemed to shift and change, a living shadow that defied understanding. Its eyes, glowing with a malevolent intelligence, fixed on us. The air was thick with tension as we stood frozen, staring at our hunter. It circled us, a predator assessing its prey. Then, without warning, it charged. The battle that ensued was chaotic and terrifying. Alex and I thrust our spears towards the creature, while Emily and Sarah hurled rocks. The creature moved with unnatural speed, dodging our attacks, its growls reverberating through the forest. In the melee, Sarah was knocked to the ground. Emily, in a display of bravery, leapt at the creature, distracting it long enough for Sarah to scramble away. Mike, seizing the opportunity, struck the creature with a large branch. The creature reeled from the blow, its form flickering as if it was struggling to maintain its shape. That's when we realized it wasn't invincible. Our fear turned to rage, fueling our attacks. We fought with everything we had, driven by the primal instinct to survive. The creature, sensing our determination, became more ferocious, more unpredictable. But we stood our ground, defending each other, united in our stand against the darkness. After what seemed like an eternity, the creature let out a piercing howl and retreated into the woods, its form dissolving into the shadows. We collapsed, exhausted, battered, but alive. We had faced the unimaginable and survived. The invisible tracker, the nightmare of the woods, had been vanquished, at least for the moment. We knew our battle might not be over, that it could return, but we had overcome our fear, proving to ourselves that we were not helpless victims. As we gathered our strength, we realized that our ordeal had changed us. We were no longer just campers caught in a horror story. We were survivors, bonded by a shared struggle against a forest that defied explanation. With the creature gone, the forest seemed to relent, the paths slowly reappearing, as if the woods were acknowledging our victory. Weary but resolute, we began our journey back to civilization, back to a world that would struggle to believe our tale. But we knew the truth of what had happened, of the terror we had faced and overcome. The invisible tracker of the woods was more than a legend. It was a reality that we had confronted and defeated, a testament to our will to survive against the darkest of horrors. As we emerged from the woods, the world seemed different, brighter, more vivid. The ordeal in the forest had reshaped our perception of reality. Our once ordinary lives had been irrevocably altered by the harrowing events we had survived. We were weary, our bodies battered, but our spirits were unbroken, tempered by the fire of our ordeal. The journey back to civilization was a time of reflection. We spoke little, each lost in our thoughts, processing the nightmare we had endured. The memories of the creature, the invisible tracker, were like shadows that flickered at the edge of our consciousness, a dark reminder of the fragility of our existence. Once back in the safety of our homes, we grappled with the aftermath of our experience. Sleep was elusive, haunted by nightmares of the creature's glowing eyes and the suffocating darkness of the woods. But with time, the nightmares faded, replaced by a newfound appreciation for the simplicity and beauty of everyday life. We kept in touch, bound by the shared trauma and the unspoken understanding of what we had faced. Our story, incredible as it seemed, was ours alone. We knew many would doubt our tale, relegating it to the realm of campfire stories and urban legends. But the truth of our experience was etched in our hearts, a silent testament to our survival. As I look back on those terrifying days, I realized that the encounter with the invisible tracker was more than a fight for survival. It was a journey into the heart of fear, a test of our courage and resilience. We had stared into the abyss and emerged stronger, more aware of the thin veil that separates the known from the unknown. In the end, our ordeal in the woods taught us valuable lessons. We learned that the human spirit is indomitable, capable of facing unimaginable horrors with bravery and determination. We discovered the strength that comes from unity, from standing together against a common threat. And we were reminded of the importance of respecting the mysteries of nature, of the unseen forces that dwell in the shadowed corners of the world. As I conclude this chapter of our family story, I turn to you, the reader. Write in the comments below the video, what do you think about this story? Have you experienced similar situations in your life? I've always had a fondness for the woods. As a child, I spent countless hours exploring the forests surrounding our sleepy suburban neighborhood in upstate New York. My parents, Ellen and John, often recounted how I'd wander off into the trees with a backpack filled with snacks and a camera slung around my neck, returning at dusk with a treasure trove of photographs and wild tales. Those early years, etched in the vibrant hues of nature and the comforting presence of my family, fostered in me a lifelong love for camping. Our home was a cozy, two-story house, complete with a sprawling backyard that bordered the dense woods. My room, a small but snug space on the second floor, was my sanctuary. The walls, adorned with posters of mountains and forests, and shelves lined with books about wildlife and adventure, reflected my outdoor passions. My favorite feature was the large window that overlooked the woods, often framing deer that ventured near at dawn. Weekends were special. My Aunt Lisa, an avid hiker, and my cousin Mark, who was more like a brother to me, would often join us for camping trips. Together, we'd delve into the heart of the forest, setting up camp near a serene lake. The nights were magical, with stories shared around the campfire, the crackling flames painting shadows on our faces. These moments, laughter-filled and starlit, were the essence of my childhood. My fascination wasn't just with the act of camping, but with everything it entailed. The meticulous preparation of gear, the thrill of setting up tents, and the joy of cooking over an open fire. I cherished the simplicity of life in the woods, the disconnect from technology, the melody of the wind rustling through leaves, and the sense of being a small, yet integral part of something larger. But as I grew older, the forest began to hold a different allure. It was no longer just a place of beauty and adventure, but also of mystery and, unbeknownst to me then, terror. Fast forward to the summer of 2015. I was 25 then, fresh out of college and working a mundane office job, yearning for an escape from the monotony. The urge to return to the woods was irresistible. I decided to embark on a solo camping trip, craving the solitude and peace that only nature could provide. Packing my gear felt like reuniting with old friends, the familiar tent, the trusty backpack, and, of course, my camera, now a more sophisticated model than the one from my childhood adventures. I set out on a sunny Friday afternoon, the excitement bubbling inside me as I drove towards the familiar forest. As I neared the camping site, a sense of nostalgia washed over me. But this trip was destined to be unlike any other. It was here, at the very edge of the woods, that I first saw her, Anna. With her long, auburn hair and a smile that could light up the darkest of nights, she was setting up her tent. Our eyes met, and in that instant, a connection sparked. She was a traveler, a soul as free as the birds that soared above us. We talked for hours, our conversation flowing as effortlessly as the nearby stream. As dusk approached, we decided to join forces, camping together under the starlit sky. That evening was perfect. We shared stories, laughed, and marveled at the beauty of the night sky. But as the fire died down and we retreated to our tents, an unsettling feeling crept over me. The forest, which had always been a source of comfort, now seemed to whisper secrets in a language I couldn't understand. Little did I know, as I lay there beside Anna, that the photos I had taken that day would unravel a story so chilling it would forever alter the course of our lives. A dark figure, barely noticeable at first, lurked in the background of each snapshot. A shadow that, with each passing photo, seemed to draw ever closer, though we had been blissfully unaware of its presence. That night, as the moon cast its pale light through the fabric of our tent, the true horror of what lay within those woods began to reveal itself, piece by terrifying piece. The morning after our idyllic night, Anna and I awoke to the golden light filtering through the leaves. Over breakfast, a simple affair of scrambled eggs and coffee cooked over the campfire, we shared our plans for the day. Anna, with her infectious enthusiasm, suggested a hike to a nearby waterfall she had heard about. I eagerly agreed, my camera ready for another day of capturing the forest beauty. As we trekked through the dense underbrush, the sounds of the forest enveloped us, a symphony of birdsong and the rustling of leaves. Anna's laughter echoed around us, blending seamlessly with the natural harmony. We reached the waterfall by midday, its roar a powerful testament to nature's untamed beauty. It was there, as we sat on the rocks, basking in the mist of the cascading water, that I first noticed something amiss. I was flipping through the photos from the previous day, ready to share them with Anna, when a chill ran down my spine. In the corner of each photo, almost hidden by the surrounding scenery, was a dark, indistinct figure. At first, I dismissed it as a trick of light or a flaw in the camera. But as I zoomed in, the figure's outline became clearer, a humanoid shape, shrouded in shadow. What was more unsettling was its progression. In each successive photo, the figure seemed closer, its form more defined, yet we had been completely unaware of its presence. I showed the photos to Anna, trying to mask my growing unease. Her initial amusement quickly turned to concern as she too noticed the figure's eerie advancement. We decided to head back to camp, the joy of the morning now overshadowed by a growing sense of dread. Back at our campsite, the atmosphere had shifted. The once welcoming forest now felt oppressive, as if eyes were watching us from the shadows. As the sun began to set, casting long, sinister shadows among the trees, our conversation turned to the history of the woods. Anna, a local, recounted stories she had heard, tales of disappearances and unexplained incidents in these very woods. I listened, a knot of fear tightening in my stomach. The photographs, the stories, the unsettling feeling of being watched, it all seemed to be converging into a nightmare that was rapidly becoming our reality. That night, as we sat huddled in our tent, the sound of branches snapping nearby sent shivers down my spine. I ventured out, flashlight in hand, determined to uncover the source. What I found amidst the underbrush chilled me to the bone, a tattered journal, its pages yellowed with age. The journal, belonging to a camper from years ago, detailed a horrifying account of their experiences in these woods. It spoke of a shadowy figure, a presence that haunted their every step, growing increasingly aggressive. The final entries were frantic, filled with terror, ending abruptly in mid-sentence. I showed the journal to Anna, her face turning pale as she read the haunting words. It was clear now we were not alone in these woods. Something sinister lurked among the trees, a malevolent force that had claimed others before us. As we sat in silence, grappling with our discovery, the forest around us seemed to close in, as if ready to unveil its darkest secrets. We knew we had to leave, to escape the nightmare that this place had become. But as we would soon discover, the true horror was only just beginning. The discovery of the journal was a tipping point, a moment where fear transcended the thrill of adventure and plunged us into a desperate need for survival. We packed our belongings with trembling hands, the darkness of the night engulfing the woods with an ominous silence. Our plan was simple yet daunting. Leave at first light, abandoning the cursed shadows of the forest for the safety of civilization. Sleep was an elusive companion that night. Every rustle of leaves, every snap of a twig sent waves of panic through our already frayed nerves. The darkness outside felt alive, sentient, as if it were watching, waiting. Beside me, Anna's quiet sobs were a constant reminder of the terror we shared. Dawn couldn't come soon enough. As the first rays of light pierced through the canopy, we set out, our pace brisk with urgency. The forest, shrouded in morning mist, seemed a labyrinth designed to thwart our escape. We stuck to the trail, but the ominous feeling of being followed persisted, a cold breath on the back of our necks. It wasn't long before we realized we weren't alone. Distant footsteps echoed our own, a subtle but constant reminder that something was stalking us. Panic set in, our brisk walk turning into a frantic run. We dodged through trees, leapt over roots, the breathless fear driving us forward. In our haste, we stumbled upon a clearing, and there, the remnants of a camp long abandoned. Tents were shredded, belongings scattered, as if the campers had fled in a hurry. Among the debris, a camera lay broken, its last photo displaying on the cracked screen, the same dark figure that haunted our photographs, but much, much closer. The realization hit us like a physical blow. We were not the first to encounter this entity, and like those before us, we were in grave danger. We had to get out, and fast. It was a humid summer morning on June 15, 2015, when Anna and I, fleeing from an unknown terror in the woods of Northern Virginia, stumbled upon a chilling scene. The clearing, once a site of laughter and camaraderie, now lay abandoned, its eerie silence a stark contrast to the forest whispers. Tents, once shelters of safety, were now shredded ruins. Their canvases torn and flapping in the gentle breeze, they stood as grim sentinels to the chaos that had transpired. Camping chairs were overturned, a cooler lay spilled, its contents, half-eaten sandwiches and empty soda cans, strewn across the ground. Amidst this disarray, my eyes were drawn to a digital camera, its casing cracked, half buried under a torn sleeping bag. With a sense of dread, I picked it up, the last photo taken flashing onto the broken screen. It was a chillingly familiar sight, the same ominous, dark figure that haunted our own photographs, now horrifyingly closer to the lens, its features almost discernible. Anna, her face pale with fear, peered over my shoulder. "We're not alone in this," she whispered, her voice trembling. The camera, a Canon EOS 5D, belonged to a photographer named Alex Johnson, as indicated by the name tag attached to the strap. Alex, as we later learned from a tattered journal found near a campfire, was part of a group of 5 friends who had ventured into the woods for a weekend of adventure. The journal, belonging to one Sarah Miller, a teacher from Richmond, detailed their excitement for the trip. But as the entries progressed, the tone shifted from joyful anticipation to unease and then to outright terror. The last entry, dated June 12, 2015, spoke of a shadow that followed them, growing closer each day. The campsite was a tableau of a hurried escape. A map of the area lay on a wooden table, routes marked in red, leading deeper into the woods. Among the items scattered around, a local newspaper clipping caught my eye. Dated back to 2010, it detailed a series of unexplained disappearances in these very woods, the last of which involved a young couple from Arlington. Putting the pieces together, a horrifying picture emerged. This entity, this shadow in the woods, had been stalking campers for years. Alex Johnson and his friends had encountered it, just as we had, and like them, we were now in grave danger. We had to make a decision, and fast. Our initial plan of exploring the woods, capturing its beauty through our lenses, had turned into a desperate bid for survival. With the haunting image from Alex's camera etched into our minds, we hastily packed our belongings. The clearing, once a haven for nature lovers, now felt like a trap. Every rustle in the underbrush, every creak of the trees seemed to signal the approach of that sinister figure. As we made our way back to the trail, I couldn't shake the feeling that the eyes of the forest were upon us, watching, waiting. This was no longer a simple camping trip. It was a fight for our lives. The once familiar and welcoming woods had transformed into a labyrinth of fear and shadows. As we hurried away, the remnants of the abandoned campsite stood as a solemn reminder of the terror that lurked within these woods, a terror that we were desperate to escape. Our escape turned into a nightmare. The woods seemed to twist and turn against us, the once familiar paths now a maze of confusion. The sense of being pursued intensified, the footsteps no longer a distant echo but a thundering presence closing in. In a moment of sheer terror, we heard it, a guttural growl, a sound not of this world, reverberating through the trees. We ran with a newfound desperation, the growl a constant companion at our heels. Finally, after what seemed like an eternity, we emerged from the tree lane, the suburbs in sight. We didn't stop running until we reached the safety of a crowded street, the normalcy of everyday life a stark contrast to the nightmare we had just escaped. In the safety of civilization, the events in the woods seemed surreal, like fragments of a bad dream. But the photographs, the journal, and our own harrowing experience were undeniable evidence of the horror that lurked in those woods. We reported our findings to the local authorities, but our story was met with skepticism. Without concrete evidence, our tale was chalked up to an overactive imagination fueled by the stress of camping in an unfamiliar area. After our harrowing experience in the Virginia woods back in 2015, Anna and I learned that survival isn't just about escaping, it's about adapting. We managed to leave those dark woods behind, but the memory of the shadow that pursued us lingered. We knew we couldn't let fear dictate our lives, so we made a pact to continue our adventures, but with caution at the forefront. Armed with more than just enthusiasm, our subsequent trips into nature were markedly different. We equipped ourselves with self-defense tools, pepper spray, and a sturdy knife for Anna, a compact yet powerful taser for me. We never ventured into the wilderness without a satellite phone, a GPS tracker, and an emergency beacon. These tools became as essential as our tent and sleeping bags, a necessary shield against the unknown dangers of the wild. Time, as it often does, brought healing and change. Our shared ordeal in the woods only strengthened our bond, and in 2017, Anna and I got married in a quaint ceremony by a serene lake, far from the haunting woods of our past. The traumatic events that had once threatened to overshadow our future now seemed like a distant nightmare. However, the shadow of those events still lingered in the back of our minds. By 2018, we decided it was time for a fresh start. We chose to move, seeking not just a new home, but a new beginning. In July that year, we relocated to Asheville, North Carolina, drawn by its vibrant community and picturesque landscapes. Our new home, a charming two-story house on Maple Street, offered a comforting sense of security. The neighborhood was peaceful, with friendly faces and a welcoming atmosphere. I took up a position as a graphic designer at a local firm, while Anna found joy in teaching at the nearby elementary school. Asheville brought a semblance of normalcy to our lives. The trauma of the past slowly receded, making way for days filled with work, community gatherings, and weekend hikes in the safer, well-trodden paths of the Blue Ridge Mountains. Our new friends in Asheville knew nothing of our ordeal in Virginia. To them, we were just another young couple enjoying the beauty of North Carolina. Our house became a reflection of our new life. The living room was adorned with photos of our travels, minus the sinister experiences. The study was my sanctuary, filled with sketches and designs, while Anna's touch brought warmth and color to every corner. Sometimes, in the quiet moments of reflection, the memories of that fateful camping trip would resurface. But they no longer held the power they once did. We had moved on, building a life that was defined not by fear, but by the love and strength we found in each other. In Asheville, under the shelter of the Appalachian Mountains, we found our haven, a place where the nightmares of the past were just whispers in the wind, echoes of a time when the shadow and the lens threatened to engulf us. Here, in our new home, we were safe, and we were together. That was all that mattered. After our harrowing experience in the Virginia woods back in 2015, Anna and I learned that survival isn't just about escaping, it's about adapting. We managed to leave those dark woods behind, but the memory of the shadow that pursued us lingered. We knew we couldn't let fear dictate our lives, so we made a pact to continue our adventures, but with caution at the forefront. Armed with more than just enthusiasm, our subsequent trips into nature were markedly different. We equipped ourselves with self-defense tools, pepper spray, and a sturdy knife for Anna, a compact yet powerful taser for me. We never ventured into the wilderness without a satellite phone, a GPS tracker, and an emergency beacon. These tools became as essential as our tent and sleeping bags, a necessary shield against the unknown dangers of the wild. Time, as it often does, brought healing and change. Our shared ordeal in the woods only strengthened our bond, and in 2017, Anna and I got married in a quaint ceremony by a serene lake, far from the haunting woods of our past. The traumatic events that had once threatened to overshadow our future now seemed like a distant nightmare. However, the shadow of those events still lingered in the back of our minds. By 2018, we decided it was time for a fresh start. We chose to move, seeking not just a new home, but a new beginning. In July that year, we relocated to Asheville, North Carolina, drawn by its vibrant community and picturesque landscapes. Our new home, a charming two-story house on Maple Street, offered a comforting sense of security. The neighborhood was peaceful, with friendly faces and a welcoming atmosphere. I took up a position as a graphic designer at a local firm, while Anna found joy in teaching at the nearby elementary school. Asheville brought a semblance of normalcy to our lives. The trauma of the past slowly receded, making way for days filled with work, community gatherings, and weekend hikes in the safer, well-trodden paths of the Blue Ridge Mountains. Our new friends in Asheville knew nothing of our ordeal in Virginia. To them, we were just another young couple enjoying the beauty of North Carolina. Our house became a reflection of our new life. The living room was adorned with photos of our travels, minus the sinister experiences. The study was my sanctuary, filled with sketches and designs, while Anna's touch brought warmth and color to every corner. Sometimes, in the quiet moments of reflection, the memories of that fateful camping trip would resurface. But they no longer held the power they once did. We had moved on, building a life that was defined not by fear, but by the love and strength we found in each other. In Asheville, under the shelter of the Appalachian Mountains, we found our haven, a place where the nightmares of the past were just whispers in the wind, echoes of a time when the shadow and the lens threatened to engulf us. Here, in our new home, we were safe, and we were together. That was all that mattered. Now, years later, as I sit in the quiet of our new home, far from the nightmares that once plagued us, I reflect on the journey that brought us here. The terror that began in those woods, the shadow in the lens, it changed the course of our lives irreversibly. Yet, in this moment of calm, I find myself pondering the paths we chose and the decisions we made. Our escape, a relentless flight from an unseen terror, was a journey fraught with fear and uncertainty. But in this fight for survival, there were also moments of profound courage and love. Anna, my steadfast partner through the darkest of times, showed me the strength of the human spirit, the power of love to overcome even the deepest of fears. Our son, born amidst this turmoil, became a beacon of hope, a reminder that even in the darkest times, life continues, resilient and beautiful. He knows little of the shadows that chased us across the world, and I hope he never will. His laughter, innocent and carefree, is a balm to the wounds of the past. Looking back, I often wonder if there was another way, a path we could have taken to confront the darkness head-on. Perhaps, in facing our fears, we could have found closure, an end to the haunting that pursued us. But then I look at my family, at the life we've built away from the terror, and I know we made the right choice. Our flight, while arduous, ensured our survival and gave us a future. As I conclude this chapter of our family story, I turn to you, the reader. Write in the comments below the video, what do you think about this story? Have you experienced similar situations in your life?